The first big update from Raiders training camp. 5 players missed practice today. Among them, Lonnie Johnson Jr., who's still recovering from that tough leg injury. Recently, a clip from his Instagram showed him joking after surgery, worrying more about his car than his leg, a real sign his spirits are high. Thomas Harper, another notable absence, had been gaining momentum earlier in camp, showing promise in a safety nickel role. He played just one snap against Seattle, and now he's sidelined, possibly from something picked up in that game. More details should be coming soon. Before we dive into the rest of the latest Raiders updates, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit like, and don't forget to tap the bell icon so you never miss breaking Raiders news. Moving on, the offensive line. The starting 5 looked exactly as many expected heading into this practice, locking in the lineup that most fans have been predicting for weeks. The Raiders lined up today with Colton Miller holding down left tackle, Dylan Parham at left guard, Jordan Meredith at center, Jackson Powers-Johnson at right guard, and rookie DJ Glaze at right tackle. Now, there's been some chatter about Parham's size this offseason. Reports listed him at 332 pounds, but he set the record straight, saying he's still in the same range as last year, somewhere between 315 and 320. That's worth noting because for an offensive lineman, weight and agility go hand in hand, and Parham has always been known for his quick feet rather than sheer bulk. But here's the real talking point: Jackson Powers-Johnson. If this guy doesn't start for the Raiders, it's hard to imagine what this coaching staff is thinking. We're talking about one of the most promising young offensive linemen they have, someone built to protect the quarterback and anchor the right side for years. Leaving him out of the starting 5 wouldn't just be a surprise. It would be a head-scratcher that could have fans questioning the decision-making coming out of Henderson. And let's be real, in today's NFL, you don't let a talent like JPJ sit when offensive line depth is gold. Moving beyond the trenches, Trey Tucker is quietly becoming one of the most exciting names in camp. In his 3rd year, he's playing with a level of confidence you only see when things start to click. The speed, the cuts, the burst, it's all coming together. Raiders fans will remember Trevon Moehlig's leap in year 3, and there's a good chance Tucker follows that same path. And considering the quarterback carousel and offensive instability he's dealt with early in his career, seeing him shine now is a welcome sight for the silver and black faithful. When you think about Trey Tucker's journey so far, the quarterback situation he's dealt with has been far from stable. Yet here he is in camp, catching passes from Geno Smith and showing why coaches are finding more and more ways to use him, not just as a receiver, but also in kick and punt return duties. That versatility could make him one of the Raiders' most valuable weapons in 2025. The speed is there, the confidence is there, and everything points toward a breakout season. Raiders fans should keep their eyes on him now before the rest of the league catches on. Switching to the defensive side, Terrell Edmunds was spotted working with the 2nd unit. Now, depth charts in the preseason aren't gospel, but his presence there is worth noting. Edmunds, signed just days ago, is already taking reps and absorbing the playbook. The move makes sense. With Lonnie Johnson Jr. out, the Raiders needed a reliable depth piece in the secondary. Edmunds brings that, along with familiarity with some of the staff through his Pittsburgh connections. If he adjusts quickly, he could see meaningful snaps sooner than expected. And there was more good news for the defense. Adam Butler returned to practice after addressing a personal matter. His presence can't be understated. Without him, this defensive line is dangerously thin. Having Butler back not only strengthens the rotation, but also gives the unit a needed boost in both experience and leadership. The energy in camp is high, but it's clear the Raiders are still shaping the roster for the battles ahead. Every rep, every adjustment now could define how this team starts the season. The Raiders' latest training camp session came with a few unexpected twists, and one of the most noticeable was the focus on tackling. After the shaky performance against Seattle, where missed tackles piled up, today's practice put a real emphasis on wrapping up, driving through contact, and cleaning up defensive execution. For fans frustrated by the preseason defensive lapses, this was a welcome sign that the coaching staff is addressing it head-on. On the offensive line, Antonio Mafi got some first-team reps at right guard. Jackson Powers Johnson was also present but managing a minor rib injury. The Raiders seem to be taking a careful approach with him, knowing his physical playing style and past injury history. Giving Mafi extra snaps not only protects JPJ but also gives the staff a closer look at their depth options. It raises an interesting roster question. If the team decides to carry 9 offensive linemen, will the final spot go to Thayer Munford or someone else who's been making a push in camp? These are the kinds of quiet battles that can shape the final roster, and they're already heating up as preseason rolls on. The tone in camp feels serious. Mistakes from last week are clearly being addressed, and the roster decisions being tested now could pay dividends once the regular season kicks off. One of the biggest standouts from today's Raiders training camp was Kai Blue Kelly. After earning an impressive 83.0 puff grade in the preseason game against Seattle, second only to Jamal Adams on defense, Kelly followed it up with another strong showing in practice. Today, he got valuable reps with the first-team defense, lining up at outside cornerback alongside Eric Stokes, while Darian Porter initially rotated out. Later in practice, Kelly returned to working with the second unit, but he made the most of it, hauling in a highlight reel interception against Aiden O'Connell that was described by one observer as a top 10 catch. Those are the kinds of plays that get a young player noticed fast. Kelly's size, standing over 6 feet tall, combined with his aggressiveness in coverage, is giving the Raiders secondary a different look. Add in his brief experience with Pete Carroll in Seattle last year, and it's clear there's a comfort level with his skill set. If roster cuts were made today, Kelly would have a strong case for making the 53-man squad, something that might have seemed unlikely just a few weeks ago. On the linebacker front, Jamal Adams continued to see work with the first-team unit. The Raiders are still primarily rolling with Jermaine Pratt, Devin White, and Ellendon Roberts as the top 3 linebackers, but Adams' increased reps suggest the coaching staff wants to see if he can carve out a bigger role. Every extra snap he takes with the starters is another step toward becoming a regular contributor. Jamal Adams is starting to resemble the player fans remember from his prime, quick, aggressive, and reading plays with confidence. Watching him at linebacker now almost makes you wonder why he wasn't moved to the position years ago. He looks natural there, and that could be a key piece to the Raiders' defensive identity moving forward. Chris Smith continues to see work in the role vacated by Lonnie Johnson Jr., especially in nickel packages. Defensive coordinator Patrick Graham has been mixing different looks, sometimes opting for a speed-oriented nickel group, other times loading up with bigger, more physical players. Smith fits into that latter approach, and his performance will be directly compared to Trey Taylor and Terrell Edmunds, who are both battling for the same role. Darian Porter remains the first-choice outside corner, but Kai Blue Kelly's versatility, playing both outside and nickel, is making roster decisions more interesting. That flexibility could give him an edge over players like Darnay Holmes, who's more limited in where he can line up. If the Raiders value versatility in their depth spots, Kelly might just force his way onto the 53-man roster. Linebacker Devin White had himself a day, picking off 2 passes, one of them a clean pick 6 against Geno Smith. The second interception came off a tipped ball, but it still reflects his improved awareness in coverage, an area that has been scrutinized in past seasons. And then there's Max Crosby. Number 98 was relentless in practice, blowing up plays and setting the tone defensively. His constant pressure directly contributed to White's pick 6, and he made life miserable for rookie tackle DJ Glaze. It's the kind of daily challenge that could either forge Glaze into a better player or remind him just how wide the gap is between rookies and all-pro edge rushers. For Crosby, it was just another day of proving he's the heartbeat of this defense. Up next, we're breaking down the Las Vegas Raiders depth chart, offense, defense, and special teams, and talking about what it actually means heading into the next preseason matchup. Before we dive into the latest depth chart details, make sure you subscribe to the channel, drop a like, and hit that bell icon so you never miss the latest Raiders news and training camp updates. Let's get into it. Looking at the offensive side of the ball, the Raiders released their updated depth chart, and there's a lot to unpack. The first thing that jumps out, and honestly frustrates me, is the "or" designation next to Jackson Powers Johnson's name. This is the kind of thing that makes you shake your head. JPJ has consistently shown he's one of the best offensive linemen on this team, both on tape and in live action. Yet, the depth chart still lists him as JPJ or Alex Kappa. If JPJ isn't already locked in as a starting offensive lineman, then we need to start questioning the decision-making process when it comes to evaluating talent in the trenches. He's physical, technically sound, and brings the kind of energy you want up front. This or situation feels less like healthy competition and more like a political nod to a veteran. That's the sort of move that could easily frustrate a young player who's earned his spot. From a wider view, the offense looks solid at wide receiver and tight end, with plenty of options to stretch the field and create mismatches. The backfield remains deep, giving the Raiders flexibility in how they attack defenses. But the offensive line and how it's organized will ultimately be the deciding factor in how far this unit can go in 2025. Now let's address something that feels straight out of the old Josh McDaniels playbook, and I'm not here for it. Enough with the unnecessary depth chart mind games. Moving on to Aiden O'Connell, I'm glad to see the Raiders kept him at QB2. I've been saying it all offseason. Keep AOC as the backup and allow Cam Miller the time he needs to develop without being thrown into the deep end too early. Honestly, I was a little worried they'd drop AOC to QB3 just to stir the pot, but thankfully they didn't. This was the right move for stability in the quarterback room. One interesting note in the backfield, Zamir White. On the latest depth chart, he's sitting at RB2, but it does have that, or next to Raheem Mostert. Zamir has been working hard, shedding some weight, improving his pass-catching skills, and tightening up his ball security. That extra burst he's showing in camp is hard to ignore, and it's making RB2 a very real competition to watch. Also worth mentioning, Marquez Callaway. The Raiders just signed him earlier this week, and he's slotted in at fourth-string wide receiver. That's exactly where he belongs right now, an extra set of legs for joint practices, with a chance to prove himself in preseason action. My guess? The Raiders might add a few more depth pieces like this before the final preseason game, since many starters likely won't suit up in Week 3. Switching over to the defensive depth chart, one thing stood out immediately. Lonnie Johnson Jr. is still listed at the bottom of the cornerback group. No surprise there, given he's rehabbing from injury. But here's where things get interesting. Thomas Booker is still marked as fourth string, even though he's been getting first-team reps in practice. This right here is a perfect example of why you can't overreact to the official depth chart in August. Paper depth charts tell you one story, but practice reps often tell you the truth. On the defensive side, Terrell Edmunds is officially listed as fourth string, but that didn't stop him from getting work with the first-team unit today. That's going to be one of the matchups I'm watching closely in the next game. Meanwhile, JT Woods got bumped up the depth chart after the Raiders traded Jacorian Bennett. But here's the twist. Kai Blue Kelly was actually taking reps ahead of him in practice. Even though Greedy Vance is still listed ahead of Kai Blue Kelly on paper, the reality is that Kelly has been mixing in with the starters. If there's one thing this defensive depth chart tells us, it's that you can crumple it up, toss it in the trash, and let practice reps tell the real story. Even Tonka Hemingway was getting first-team work at defensive tackle today, and he's listed as a defensive end. At this point, I'm not sure if anyone, including Patrick Graham, fully trusts what's written on that official chart. Before we jump into the rest of the updates, quick reminder, before you hear the latest Raiders news, make sure to subscribe to the channel, smash the like button, and hit the bell icon so you never miss a single update. Now, let's get back to camp action. On special teams, no surprises at punter, kicker, or long snapper. But here's my personal plea. I don't want to see Ashton Genty on special teams in a regular season game. Sure, test it out in a random training camp practice or mini camp, but if he's doing kick returns or punt returns in week 1 unless the game's on the line, that's a no from me. Tommy Millard is still listed as fourth string, and while the hope was that he could become a returner, Trey Tucker has locked in that role. That said, there's an underrated roster battle brewing for the backup returner spots. Dylan Lobb, Alex Bachman, Chris Collier, and Sincere McCormick are all in the mix. It might come down to which player offers just a little bit more value on special teams. For example, Bachman might be the better wide receiver than Malott, but McCormick might be a more dynamic returner than Law. Those little differences could be the deciding factor in who makes the final 53. The Raiders will take on the 49ers this weekend, and that's always a little more intense than a normal preseason game. There's a big giveaway happening during Saturday's live coverage, and trust me, even non-Raiders fans would want this prize. So be there, be subscribed, and don't miss it.